Ted Lees helped build the muscle of the export industry our country depends on. He was a war hero, had a restless, inventive mind and deep roots in the country's business history. Here he shares some of his memories.
And this guy turned up, and being a kid, I just, what's he want? And so father stopped everything, made a cup of tea, and he said, "Oh look, I heard Rolly Lees, my brother was a good mechanic and an engineer. I'm in trouble about this garage he'd built." And he said, "I don't know one end of a motor car from another. Could he help me?" And father said, "Well, he works in Auckland, catches the train every morning. There's only the weekends and after hours." So my brother, very quickly, he's a very good mechanic, my brother, and he very soon, after hours and weekends, got all this going again. So this guy said, "Oh, would you come and work for me?" And father said, No, we'll lease it from you." Because father had a degree in things and had a Lloyd's scholarship, and he'd been sent to work in London. Imagine you sitting at Lloyd's doing this all day. So he is quite, he could really do a wonderful presentation, with everything was done by hand in those days. We didn't have all these things. So father said, "We'll lease it from you." So father, he looked after the service station, my brother did and we leased it. And as a kid, my job was to go down to Beach Road there in the corner, and there was a great big sign, Big Tree Petrol, 1 shilling and 6pence. But then every now and then it'd go up to 1 and 6pence halfpenny. So on the bike down there, either putting the halfpenny on or painting it out, So, we grew up there, and everybody helped. My mother cooked all hours, and we were in the after school, because all hand pumps in those days, I'd come home from school and I'd see all these 40-gallon drums there, and I'd think, You ever used one of those?
No.
Never take on my lap. Anyhow, that's how it all started. And then, of course, A.U. Wells became a great supporter of ours because he sold that to Shell Oil. So Big Tree went to Shell Oil. You'll often see this in old ads. You'll see Big Tree. It was bought by Shell. So we got to know Shell, and for donkey's years, we were buddy with Shell. But in the meantime, I was rebelling about, I wanted to work, because I was even driving the breakdown truck when I wasn't supposed to, and doing all that, because we had the only AA, get your home service. No towies in those days. We had the only one from Mercer to Otahu. So I wanted to come to work. I didn't want to go on. They sent me into Otahu high school in those days, not a college. And I walked into the school. My family said I had to be an accountant, and I didn't want to be an accountant. I wanted to be an engineer. And I looked at, you've ever heard of Mousy Rout? He was a great accountancy. He marked most of the maiden papers in New Zealand. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and I was thinking, I don't want to be here. And he said, I could see the look in his eyes, I don't want you here either. So that went on for a while, and then I gave father's one day was talking to A.U. Wells and said, A.U. Wells said to father, "What are you going to do with him?" And father said, "Well, he's rebelling, and I want to teach him to do as he's told." You see, it was a big job. So when I was 16, I went in and joined the army at the drill hall in Rutland Street, and that's how the army thing started. They threw me into army school. Army school was at Narrow Neck then, and so I came out of there instructor for the transport, the first transport in Wairuru. And the joke was, I hadn't turned 18, And I was the only one down there that could issue heavy traffic licences. Wasn't even 18 myself. I got into trouble everywhere I went. I got into trouble for doing things too soon. But then when this hush-hush thing came along, that was a great opportunity. There was Duncan McIntyre and Bruce Smith. He ended up afterwards 20 years chief of the Bank of New Zealand, and a lot of people I could, there was only 200 of us picked to go to Australia. Well, that was a big thing. And there again, I was thrown into something new. I was the first guy to ever use plastic high explosive. Great stuff, I could still use it. Because I had history on my thing and bringing the first tanks into New Zealand and Trentham and all that. They sent us back to New Zealand to start the 4th Armoured Brigade. And if you've been an instructor and you're young and a bit arrogant like we were, we didn't join the army to be blooming instructors, where's the war? Sort of. They put me in a pretty awkward spot because here was I with these things, some of them I'd never seen before, thrown in the deep end. We've got to have all these tanks got ready and you're in charge of that for when the big invasion comes, which I wouldn't say where it was. So I ended up with a Liberty ship with 20-odd tanks and only 20-odd men. They'd only give me because there's only about this much room for them to lie down and sleep. Because you know what a Liberty ship was? There's only about 12 a crew. They were put together on the assembly line, all welded together by old Kaiser. And I looked out the porthole and we went out of Alexandria and there was 150 ships. And of course we didn't know. We had to waterproof them because they thought we might have to have a pretty wet shore coming, And fortunately we went off round the corner and I'm watching the north because I'd done a bit of navigation where the other ships went that way. I said, we're going into the Adriatic. So, but what had happened, the British had done a marvellous job. They'd kidded the Germans, through the back door, I suppose, that all the landings would be at Messina, where the Yanks landed from Sicily. And they evacuated Bari, so we didn't have to put them on the beach. We sailed into the harbour and unloaded on the wharf. And then on, of course, we had a really lousy time. The tanks weren't suitable for the conditions. We had to weld bits on them to make the tracks wider and getting stuck all the time and they had a lot of mines and all those things. But it was a great experience, but everything there was different. They had old Scammels with Gardner engines and they had this and this. And because you're supposed to know all these things, well, half these things, but you had to do it. So it was a case of doing it.